Welcome to the Bridge of Truth. My special guest this evening is Kristen Boyer, and we're going to be talking about shamanic healing through soul retrieval. Welcome, Kristen, to our show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much, Al.
We met recently, and when I heard what Kristen was doing, I got very excited about the possibility of having her here. But we have a lot to talk about because in the title, we seem to infer four separate subjects that we can be talking about. The first is shamanism. And so why don't we start with that? I think that'll set the foundation for everything else you're going to be talking about. And I think it'll help our viewers to perhaps demystify any preconceptions they may have about it, any sort of negative association. How is shamanism applied to your work in its roots in general?
Shamanism is the oldest form of spiritual practice, and we see that shamanism is a core belief system that's present through every indigenous community. So we look at every single continent and we find that every community had a form of shamanism. And shamanism is oftentimes tied to the belief that plants and animals and people all have souls, and how we interconnect with one another, how one person's decisions can affect the earth and can affect the planet and can affect one another. So how we're all tied in this giant community of earth.
So you're essentially talking about an ancient religion or belief system?
It's an ancient belief system which has been the foundation of many different belief systems in the world, and all indigenous people have been connected to it. There's shamanism with the Australian Aborigines. There's shamanism with the Inuits. There's shamanism with the Northern Native Americans, the Southern Native Americans. All over the world, we look at these common practices that each indigenous society had. And so one of those practices that I work with in my own practice is called soul retrieval.
So how does shamanism in the ancient day relate to the way that it's practiced now?
Well, of course, shamanism is updated because we are a changing people and there's changing themes and changing needs and concerns. And so shamanism is wonderful because it adapts to all of these different changes within ourselves, within society, within our needs. And so shamanism is a way to connect to our own selves, to our souls, to our spirits, and to the spirits that are all around us, whether we believe in them or not. And I'm excited to be able to share a guided meditation allowing the audience to go into an altered state of consciousness using the drums, as indigenous people around the world have used drums and bells and rattles to achieve an altered state of consciousness. So in that demonstration, everyone will have an opportunity to connect to themselves on a deeper level and also connect with their helping spirits who are here to guide you. And so shamanism is a wonderful way to tap into the guidance that we have all around us, and to be able to see ourselves and our lives from a different perspective that can help us in the day-to-day practice.
So how does healing apply then in that context?
Well, it all depends on what kind of healing you're going to do. With shamanic soul retrieval, and I'll explain a little bit about soul retrieval, because I'm sure that most people are scratching their heads thinking, what soul retrieval? Don't we have one soul, and isn't it always here, and aren't we fully complete? Shamans believe that if someone had experienced a trauma or a difficult situation, and trauma can range from anything as serious as a car accident to a very difficult fight or a breakup with your spouse where you just don't feel the same afterwards. It's like your heart's blocked or part of your heart is missing. Some people report that they've had a car accident and they don't feel like they're fully present in their body, that their mind is fuzzy. And trauma can also go to you feeling alone or abandoned as a child, and even that theme that reoccurs in your life where you feel like people leave you or aren't fully present for you, or any feelings that reoccur in your life where you feel like there's a piece of your power that's missing.
So is this sort of like an aspect of personality than what you're referring to in soul? Because soul has so many different meanings. Some religions apply in the Christian sense or the biblical sense. Some religions don't believe in a soul at all. So how does the word soul how are you applying it in this case?
So in this case, we're all born with a soul. And many people say they are able to connect with their higher soul, or what shamans may call an oversoul, which is your most complete piece of yourself, or I'm sorry, your most complete being that transcends many lives, if you believe in past lives, and that is completely pure when you're able to tap into that, giving you knowledge about your own path. So it's believed that if you've experienced a difficulty in your life, that it's possible that part of your soul can get stuck or can separate from you. So in psychology, we call this disassociation, or that we're disconnected from different aspects of ourselves because of a trauma or because of a difficult time. And so in shamanism, we reclaim that power by connecting to that piece of soul, piece of energy, vitality. There's different ways to explain it. All really means the same thing, where you can go through a shamanic journey and connect with those pieces that have separated from you or have become stuck, and bring them back, reunite them with your physical being, your body, and have that energy fully restored.
So the kind of like aspects of our consciousness then?
Aspects of our consciousness, or our emotions many times, or our confidence, or our sense of self, our groundedness. So in a way, we have a personality which is fully intact and may change a little bit over the course of your life due to your experiences. But these are parts of your energy, or your vitality, your glow. So when I'm working with a client and I see that they are triggered by something, or there's possibly a soul loss, I may see that in their eyes they're not fully present, or they become dim. And then I change the subject and ask them something about what they're passionate about, and their eyes light up, and there's joy and there's energy that floods into their body. So when we tap back into what it is that was difficult for them, or that situation or that trauma, we're able to see that there's an energy within them that's not as vibrant, or not able to fully translate through the situation. So if you're around someone who's passionate, very excited, you'll feel their energy.
Right.
When we're tapping into a soul loss, you find that that energy is not fully present. What's very interesting is that not only can you have soul loss for the spirit, you can also have soul loss that's connected to body parts if there's been trauma. So someone who's broken a leg, you may find that there's not as much vitality or energy even after the leg has healed. And so there's different ways of tapping into this, and I've been able to work with some of my clients and be drawn to a certain part of their body and feel that, okay, there's not as much energy here as there is on this side. And so tapping in and then finding that there was an injury there, and that 4 years ago there was a story connected to that, whether it was an emotional soul loss because of that injury or it was purely physical. We find that the spirit may not be as vibrant or as strong in that part of the body, or having to do with that trauma or that theme. So it may have been related to confidence. I have this one story that is just so powerful. Before I got into shamanism, I was working as a creative arts therapist, and one of my clients was working through some of his own trauma in a documentary film that we were making. And it was a private film. It was merely for his own recovery purposes. And when we were working on one of the scenes, we had scenes of him drawing these buildings, and he was really centered on drawing bricks. And he would focus in, and for hours, he would draw these intricate brick buildings. And so finally I had to ask, what is it with you and the bricks? Is there a story behind this? And I remember he looked up at me and was looking at me like, yes, there's a story. Are you serious? And he puts down the pen and he says that when he was 15 years old, he was sledding with a bunch of friends. It was a snow day. All of the cool kids were there, including a girl that he had a huge crush on. And he was wanting to impress his friends, and especially this girlfriend of his. And so he was getting into the sled and getting ready to go down the hill when he lost control of the sled. He veered off to the left instead of to the right and went smack dab right into the brick building. So not only was he mortified because this crush and all of his friends are there bearing witness to this accident, but his mother was in the building, and she was on the side where he had his collision. And she peers out through the window, and instead of, showing remorse or showing sympathy for him, she begins to laugh at him and make fun of him. And so not only is his mother making fun of him from, a few flights above him, but all of his friends are laughing too. And for whatever reason, he was stuck on this disempowerment that happened when he was 15, where he continued to ruminate about these bricks and these brick buildings, and it continued to come back to this loss of confidence.
I know we're going to get into some of the deeper aspects and the specifics of your work. I'd like to hear a little bit more about where you were and how you got to this point where you realized you could even do this. What's your background and what brought you to where you are now with the kind of work that you do, or even understanding that you have this ability?
That's such a long and intricate question.
That's
fine. I'd love to answer it.
I'm sure my viewers will want to hear that too.
So the path of shamanism oftentimes comes without heeding any warning and without any real preparation. Oftentimes the path of the shamanic practitioner, the shaman, is one of the wounded healer or one of initiation. And my initiation was very stark and sort of, if you will, ripped the rug out from underneath of my life. And I had to lose everything before I came to this path to be able to see it for its power. So I guess my path started, I was raised a fundamentalist Christian, and I had very limiting beliefs about spirit. It was sort of black and white, dictated by what God says in the Bible, believing that if you don't believe in the message of Christ dying for our sins, that you are then going to go to hell, for sure. There was not a lot of leeway within that, and I'm sure many of your guests here have had similar paths. For whatever reason, it always brings us to these beautiful spiritual awakenings oftentimes, wanting to expand our horizons and look beyond what we have learned as children through Christianity, through Catholicism. And so or
for any other religion for that matter, because they
absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. In my own personal path, I had been wanting to get as far away from fundamentalist Christianity as possible. And I married a man who was as far away from it as possible. And I think at that time I was buying into a fantasy of what it is that I wanted and putting a lot onto this person who was not really going to help rescue me from this upbringing that I had. So that relationship didn't last very long. It lasted about 6 months before he emptied my bank account and he fled the country. After that time, I was trying to figure out how to stay in New York. I didn't want to go back to my fundamentalist Christian roots and my family. There was not a lot of warmth there, and there was not a lot of support. And so, on the dare of a friend who saw that I was suffering in the job that I was working at, I had gone through my training as a psychotherapist and creative arts therapist. And at that time, because the job market was really tricky, I was working with emotionally disturbed children, being a nanny, caring for them, caring for some broken families. It was a lot of stress at that time, and I was really unable to bear it all and take care of myself at the same time. And it was during that time that some of my coworkers made a dare and said, you seem like you have some steam to blow off. Have you ever thought about becoming a professional dominatrix? And so at that, I had all these fantasies of what that would look like. And, dominatrix, is that with the whip? Is that what I think? And at that point, I had lost everything. And I said, you know what? I have nothing to lose. So why not go down this path and see what's there?
Now, to be clear, we're talking about a legal, legitimate profession.
We're talking about a legal, legitimate profession, working in a commercial dungeon in Midtown, where it was usually men who came in, but there's sometimes women. And it's about role play and role reversal. A lot of CEOs of big companies come in because they want to give away their power. They have so much, and they want a place or an outlet where they're able to release all of those responsibilities, give that to someone else, and be bossed around. And so there's so many different avenues of working as a professional dominatrix. It's completely legal. There's no sex involved. There's no sexual contact. And the role that I picked up as soon as I went there was role play. And so it turned out that using a psychotherapy lens to connect with my clients and to sort of frame their experiences, we were reenacting a lot of scenes of what I saw was disempowerments, traumas that had happened early on. It's amazing how many people are living out or acting out these traumas of being sexually abused or violated or exposed. A lot of people who are verbally abused or are bossed around. And when I was able to go deeper within these fantasies and ask them more detailed questions about why it was that they wanted to explore these themes, I found oftentimes that it led to them talking about childhood, how they didn't feel like they were fully supported, or how they felt these repercussions of abuse that happened. So I had one client who would always act out the same scenes of his foster mother and his foster mother's mother abusing him, ordering him around, making him do chores, whipping him for not doing his homework or for not cleaning his room. And so there were all of these different role plays that I was aiding these men in acting out. And I found that it was very similar to the psychotherapy work that I had been doing. I had worked previously with those with mental illness and chemical dependencies. And I was finding that in the work as a dominatrix and in the work as a psychotherapist, people were continuing to dialogue these stories or reenact these stories, or even draw them or move them in movement therapy. It was always coming down to the same theme that we were working around, but we never really got back to that core essence, what was lost. And once I began working with shamanism, which I'll explain in a moment how I moved into that work, it was this epiphany of all this work that I had done, all this life experience, where I was finding that people were almost doomed to reenact these different themes because there was something so potent missing. And looking at the root of what was missing, it was their essence, their vitality, their soul parts.
So then, were these clients coming to you because the things that they had endured in their lives had created these soul parts? It's just that they didn't realize that, or weren't going to somebody who understood that and could help them?
I think within that realm that I worked at the dungeon, a lot of people had a lot of shame around these disempowerments. A lot of it came down to sexual abuse or verbal abuse or family abuse where they didn't feel fully accepted, fully seen. And there was a lot of fear about intimately sharing these components of their life with their partner, with their friends, with their parents. And so the dungeon created a safe space for these men to share these traumas and really look for a compassionate way to work through it. And I say compassionate, and I only say that in the sense that I am very compassionate and that I never wanted to hurt anyone. And the services that I offered were really about playing with those energies, exposing and seeing what we can also call the shadow, or these parts of ourselves that we're afraid to show the entire world because it feels like it's a very deep emotional weakness. And so in this space, you're able to explore the depths of those feelings and connect it to different disempowerments. And so I left that work after 11 months in the dungeon. And at that point, I was working as a holistic health coach, and I was counseling clients all around the world. And it was funny because this thread of shamanism continued to come up. And I was finding that it was everywhere I was looking. I was even working at a holistic healing center in Manhattan where there were classes offered on shamanism. I had 2 clients telling me about shamanism. All these other friends were telling me about these books on shamanism. And finally I said, okay, I'm going to check out what this is. There was a lot of resistance for quite some time because shamanism, it could be demonism, and these Christian roots. I was terrified of exploring this. And I had made peace with my Christian faith of my parents and my ancestors, and something was calling me that went so much deeper than these roots that I had to explore it. And so it was in the first class on an introduction to shamanism where instead of meeting a power animal, I connected to these Native American helping spirits that identify themselves as my ancestors. And I do have some Algonquin blood running through these veins. And so it was really connected to my soul, to my being, to be in these journeys and to connect with these helping spirits. And I found that in my very first journey, I was identifying all of this information. It was like the second world that felt more comfortable than this primary world, that I was able to tap into this ancient knowledge and move with it with such ease. And I found that through the work and through these classes that other students were asking me to do healings or were asking me to help them in their own path. And it just became this path I needed to soak up in every single way. And something was calling me to soul retrieval even before I knew what it was. I was hearing about it through a client that I was working with doing the holistic health coaching. And all of a sudden, she was able to make these leaps and bounds in her own healing. What I found was I would give her different tasks to do, to hold her accountable for staying on her path. And what would come up were all of these blockages to moving forward. And then all of a sudden, something shifted. And she was able to move forward with such ease. And I asked her, what are you doing differently? Something has shifted. She was going above and beyond the recommendations that I was giving her and really moving forward so quickly in a path to empower herself. And when I inquired about what had changed in her behavior, she said, I had a soul retrieval. I've been telling you about soul retrieval. You need to check it out. She kept saying, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I feel like you have to know. Mm-hmm. So finally, I gave up resisting when a book on soul retrieval literally jumped out at my feet. And I said, okay, the universe is telling me I need to look into this. And at that point, I didn't have the financial backing to be able to take this journey to go to New Mexico to study with the Shamanic Practitioner named Sandra Ingerman. I was really drawn to her work because she has a background in psychotherapy. So she had a lot of the same pieces that I was working with, a similar perspective to see through, seeing that in psychology, we only go about halfway until we say, okay, there's disassociation. Now there's medicine for this, or there's talk therapy. Right. And in shamanism, we talk about gaining your power back from going back and tapping into that original experience and pulling the energy or the essence that detached from us or was blocked because of that and restoring it to the person. And so I found that when I was being called to go on this journey to learn more about soul retrieval, I didn't have the finances. And it was as if I felt a Native American spirit who was present in the room. And he said, don't worry, you have to go to this. I said, I don't have the money. How am I going to go? And he said, the money will come in 3 days. And in 3 days it came. And at that point I said, I have to trust. As I had mentioned before, after my husband emptied my bank account and left, it was like I had nothing to rely on anymore. It was this fantasy of tapping into this relationship I thought was going to save me and feeling like I didn't have legs to stand on with my fundamentalist Christian family. And now that I felt that my power had been taken, I needed something else to stand on.
So this was a process of retrieving your own soul parts, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I have to say that one of the most important parts of my journey was working as a dominatrix. And this illustrated that there's so many ways to try to take your power back and so many ways that we try to tap into to feel complete, to feel whole. And so my own path was after this person completely disempowered me, after I had a history of disempowerment in my childhood through my family, through abuses, through the way my family framed the church. Because I won't say that the church in itself was abusive, but I think that some of the viewpoints that my parents framed Christianity with, that black and white, good or bad, no acceptance for lesbians or for gays or for dating outside the religion, all sorts of things. I found that part of my path was to go into my own shadow and to look at those pieces that I felt were so disempowered and to play with them. So doing shadow work in the dungeon. I was trying to find my power by having power over someone else. Or for playing this role where I felt very sexy, very empowered, very much in control, when in my own personal life I felt like things were spinning out of control. I couldn't figure out how to stand up on my own. And so it was through this work that I found that in the moment, in these role plays, I felt great. I felt on top of the world. But as soon as I would go home, I would find that I was crying myself to sleep. The power was gone. There was something missing. And I could pretend it was there in an hour session, a 90-minute session, but afterwards there was still a wound there, and there was no way I could mask that.
Would it be similar to even what would be happening with your clients then? Because when they're in that role play, they're kind of reinforcing their trigger.
Absolutely.
So in a sense, you're both getting the drug, but you hadn't gone through the healing that would allow you to no longer need to even be there, or for your clients to be there.
Absolutely. And I think that it was such an important process for me to go through that experience of trying to empower myself and then realizing that this isn't cutting it. This isn't how I get my power back. In fact, it's hurting someone else in a way by playing with that power. And I think it was good in a way that it was consensual and it was safe within those parameters. But there's many people.
There's a need for it. I mean, at some point, but you hope that an individual is able to process what they, the healing, as you say,
Absolutely.
so that they can move beyond that, where it doesn't become something that they're doing necessarily to ease a trigger. But if they want to continue in that lifestyle, it's a choice, and they find a benefit in it, but not because they need to be there because of some wound that they've haven't healed.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of people who ask about, does that work perpetuate wounds? And I think that just like psychotherapy can bring about an awareness of it, whereas it's so repressed and so hidden that allowing it to come up and play can give us insight into the shadow, or give us insight into these needs that we have, or to help us play with those roles using archetypes to express ourselves through can oftentimes be beneficial. But it gets to a point where once you realize what's missing, or once you realize that you are playing into these behavioral patterns, that you can remain stuck by continuing to use that as an outlet or as a crutch if you're not able to go deeper than just those role plays.
Yeah, and I know that this has even happened in other healing modalities for addiction, Alcoholics Anonymous, or some of the other 12-step groups. It's sort of like you can become addicted to the group, and at some point you have to grow so that even though you're going to be attending those meetings and helping, you're doing it from a place of being empowered in the process.
Exactly. And so I found that amazing, because even working at a clinic, I found that all of the addicts ended up getting addicted to coffee. And so if it's not one thing, it's another. And so the best way to address that is to go back and see, why are we filling this space, and what really belongs in this space? What's missing? Because caffeine is not always going to help. Distractions, the internet, porn, sex, relationships, shopping. I mean, we fill these spaces with so many different things in this day. And it's really important to look into these wounds and say, what is missing? Because it's you. It's your essence. Yeah. And there's been a wound that has perpetuated these patterns. And once we go back to that original wound and see what's missing, it's amazing how the behaviors start to shift, and how these patterns begin to reshape themselves, because we have the power back, put into its right place, where we're able to stand up to these situations and to make a different choice, or feel empowered to move forward, or to respond to someone in a different way that would attract a different situation to begin to occur. And so within my path, I found that, trying to fill it with being in control, or being a sexy dominatrix, or, trying to reenact these wounds through relationships throughout my life, I found that when I discovered Soul Retrieval, it really helped me to identify where these patterns began. So in the shamanic journey, seeing and asking your helping spirits, where did this begin? Where's the beginning of this pattern? And then be able to connect with those pieces that have disassociated from us, or have disconnected. Sometimes I find that they have left our bodies and are physically standing in the same room in the same moment where we lost that power. Sometimes I'll find that doing sort of like a psychic surgery, where on a spiritual level we'll go inside the body and see if there's a blockage. And there's been times where removing that blockage in this healing journey with the help of my guiding spirits, that will remove a blockage, and we'll see, say, a 6-year-old soul part that's, all curled up and saying, I don't want to be left. I don't want to be hurt. So I'm hiding behind this blockage. and inquiring about what that wound is. Why are you hiding? Why are you here? And it's amazing what stories will come through. So it's different to work with every client because it's based on their healing experience and their own personal experiences in life. And so it may be that 6-year-old was afraid because her father was abusive, and that he came home from work and he had come from the bar and had some drinks, and she had to go and hide, and all she really wanted was a big hug because she had a really hard day. And so there's these different parts of ourselves that don't always feel safe, fully present in our bodies. And so to enable us to move forward in a situation, we can't move through fully intact, or it's as if a piece of us doesn't feel comfortable to stay and almost gets left behind. And so we oftentimes find this in relationships where, there's soul parts that are given away. And after that relationship ends, we move on, but it's like part of our heart's missing. And we can do so many different things to heal that relationship, to heal our past relationships, but there's still something that is missing that you just don't feel the same. And that's exactly what happened with me after this relationship with my ex-husband. I found that my heart was so broken that I couldn't open it up and share it with anyone else. And I had people who wanted to suit me at the time, but I couldn't open up to them. It was like part of me was inaccessible. It was like part of me was fully checked out. I could feel it. I wasn't fully seeing that person. I wasn't fully seeing my surroundings. I didn't feel fully present in my body. And I found that I had a difficult time leaving the house at that time. I was very depressed. I would only go to work. And other than that, I was a real homebody. I was afraid to meet new people. I was afraid to especially interact with men outside of work, where I could tap into this different persona and feel empowered. But that was a way to protect my core. That was a way to identify with an archetype that would allow me to feel empowered when underneath it was too difficult to share my vulnerability with someone else. And it wasn't until I had soul retrieval work in many different areas of my life, but specifically around this relationship, where I worked with a girl who I trained with in New Mexico. And we were good friends until she moved away. And we did this amazing healing where once she brought back these pieces of this broken marriage from my ex, she blew them into my heart. And immediately it was like, oh, wow, I'm in my body. I'm here. I remember like pounding on my chest, hitting my face, and just being like, oh, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm me again. And I just had this wind of confidence, and I was ready to go out into the world. And after that, I became very social again. And my roommates at the time were just blown away because they had seen this huge transformation. I had moved into a communal living situation after I had moved out of the place that my ex and I had been living after he left. And so they had only seen me at my lowest. And they continued to be witnesses for this transformation process that I went through as I began to bring back these pieces of myself, of my soul, and become more of myself. So even transforming today, as I must have received about 130 soul parts, but who's counting? And I just...
You mean your own?
Of my own, yeah, because I'm continuing to do the work. Because I used to be completely zoned out. I remember people would have conversations with me. I just wasn't there. And sometimes people would be like, where are you? And I'd have to come back to focus and realize that I wasn't paying attention. I had no idea where I was. But I wasn't in my body. And I lacked confidence. I lacked the ability to be present, to have joy after this person left my life, from so many wounds that had caused. And all of a sudden, through soul retrieval work, I was able to reclaim these pieces of myself. And some of them went back to my early childhood, as early as being an infant, being as early as 2, 5, 7, so many different ages, where it's amazing how you live your life without your energy. And then when you get that back, you just feel more complete or whole, or who you wanted to be. So tapping into this person that I never really knew could exist, but always has, but not fully in my body at the time.
I know you're going to be doing a demonstration shortly, but in order to be able to get people to prepare for it, explain a little bit more about what these soul parts are specifically. Because in our conversations, you almost or did make it sound like they were almost like ghost pieces or things that would even be left behind once you die. And to help a person understand what they might be trying to reclaim during your meditation, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So we are born with this soul, and for the most part, it's intact. You're mostly here, I'm mostly here. If not, they say we'd be in a coma state, which is what Sandra Ingerman teaches that people will go into if they're missing too much of their spirit, too much of their soul, that they're not able to be fully embodied. And so we believe that there is an oversoul or a higher self that is fully intact. But over the course of several different lifetimes, we may have traumas that trigger soul loss where we don't come fully complete as our oversoul into this life. So that gets a lot deeper. There's a lot of different angles to this. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. In this life, we're born with our soul mostly intact, if you believe in past lives, and that we can have these wounds that reactivating those parts would be through a past life healing, which people claim to have miraculous recoveries from, phantom limbs to pains in their side, that once they recover the original trauma in a past life, they're able to, in a way, have a soul retrieval or get part of their spirit or their energy back. So soul parts are really just energy, your vitality, your essence, your fullest being. And so in our lives, we find that there's a lot of difficulties, and at times we don't feel like we're able to be fully present, or we have to check out because life is just too hard, or we can't continue to suffer different abuses. Say that there's verbal abuse in the house, and that part of you will just say, I don't want to be told that I'm not good enough anymore. So that part of them will just sort of leave or step aside. Or that there's a physical trauma where it's too painful to be fully present in our body, that a little bit of us might leave. And so if we talk about indigenous cultures and shamanism, we know that the medicine man or the shaman would help those within the community to restore their vitality and their energy by doing healings within 3 days of a trauma. So these days, we don't have a lot of shamans walking around, and we're not routinely doing these healings.
You may have these wounds for 20, 30,
40, 50 years.
Yeah.
And so to go back and to connect with what energy was lost at that disempowerment, at that moment, we're able to restore the energy or the essence, the vitality of yourself at that age.
So what can a person watching your meditation be mindful of while they're watching it?
Well, I'm not going to be doing a soul retrieval exercise per se, because that gets really tricky and you need some training for that. Okay. So what I'm going to be leading everyone through is an exercise to be able to connect with your helping spirits. And the directive that I've chosen today is to help you viewers to connect with how you can be in alignment with your own personal power. So oftentimes we feel triggered or we feel like we're not fully grounded. And so this is going to be an exercise so that we can tap into our power, our essence, our energy without doing the soul retrieval.
It's sort of like an introduction to the process.
Absolutely.
And people don't have to be thinking or worrying about trying to retrieve something. They're just going to benefit from the idea of meditating and gaining personal energy.
Absolutely. And so that meditation is going to be to a helping spirit who is going to volunteer to guide each and every one of us through this process of connecting to our power and getting back on that path to connecting to our divine essence.
Yeah, and I ask the viewers to be open to this process, even if it's something that perhaps is foreign to your personal belief system. Go with it. I mean, it's sort of like imagine or role play yourself and imagine that you are this person who is going on this journey and meeting animals and guides and see how that benefits you. So I'm going to get out of your way. We're going to get set up here. Going to allow Kristen to take center stage, and we'll be back in a minute for our meditation. Stay with us.
So today I'm going to lead you viewers on an introductory journey. In shamanism, we talk about exploring 3 different worlds. The upper world, where we have angels and spirits, teachers in human form and guides. The middle world, where we have lost and stolen objects, where we have ghosts and other disembodied spirits, and where we find lost and stolen objects such as soul parts. And in the lower world, which is personally my favorite world to work in, and also the easiest one to explore in a beginner's journey, we oftentimes find spirit guides, power animals, and helping spirits who are available to connect with us and help us get deeper into our own healing paths. So journey work is wonderful because anyone can do it. And it doesn't matter what religion you're a part of, you're still able to journey. So with journey work, we find that indigenous people all over the world would go into a trance-like state, activating theta brain waves through the use of repetitive drumming, singing, chanting, bells, rattles, or dancing. And so today I'm going to lead you through a journey to the lower world to connect with a power animal or a helping spirit who's going to help you connect with your own path to personal power. And so what's wonderful about these journeys is that oftentimes our helping spirits will show us a different path using symbols or using metaphors to help explain big messages. So I ask that you try your best to get out of your monkey mind, to allow the chatter in your head to just quiet, to get fully present in your bodies so that you can be able to move very easily into this journey meditation. And so what I'm going to have you do is imagine first, before we begin, a place in nature that you have gone to as a kid or that you feel connected to. So it could be a tree that you used to climb. It could be a place in the park that you like to visit. Any place that you already know of. So using your mind or using a fantasy to begin the journey. Moving into that place, whether it's a tree, you can move into the tree, into the body, going down into the earth. Or if it's a pond or a lake, you can imagine diving in and swimming all the way down to the bottom. Regardless of how you enter this space, I want you to imagine moving down through this place in the earth, all the way down through the different layers of sediment, the different layers of stone and gravel, moving all the way down towards the center of the earth. And eventually you're going to come to an opening. And once you come out on the opening, I want you to just look around and take in your surroundings. I'm going to ask you to call upon a helping spirit or a power animal who is going to help guide you to show you how to connect with your path of power. Again, I'm going to have you think about a place in nature that you already know of, with your intention moving down into the center of the earth through all the different levels and layers. You can imagine how that tunnel will smell, how it will feel, how long it will take you to get down. With all of your senses, move down into the center of the earth, feel it in your body, smell it, hear it. And once you get down to the center of the earth where there's an opening, I want you to ask for a power animal or helping spirit to show you how to connect with your path of power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be playing the rattles and singing a little bit about our intention, but I'm also going to start moving into a drumming meditation. And so when you hear the drumming begin, you can imagine going to this place in nature, moving down through the layers of the earth, connecting with your power animal to ask them about connecting you to your path of power. And when I drum, it's going to sound like this. And when I'd like you to return from your journey, I'm going to show you a callback that's going to sound like this. followed by a quickened beat to tell you that it's time to say goodbye and thank you, and then move all the way back through your entire journey, up through that place in the earth, all the way to that place in nature, and then back to your space, your seat, where you're laying, wherever feels right in your home. And that quickened beat is going to sound like this. Ending with a callback. And that will be the end of the meditation. So before we begin, I'm just going to take a moment to call in all of our helping spirits, all of our angels, and all of our guides, all of our healed ancestors, asking if there's any energies that are not here for our highest good, that you please leave through the cracks in the windows and the doors, because there's no space for you here today. Only calling in all of our helping spirits, the spirits of the 6 directions, of the east, of clear communication, of the south, of transmutation, of the west, of our feelings and the unconscious, that which we need to understand, the spirits of the north, our ancient healing ancestors, calling on the spirit of Pachamama, Mother Earth, and Father Sky, calling in all of our helping spirits to clear space for us to go on this journey to connect with a power animal that will guide us on our own healing paths to power. Oh, eh, oh, eh, eh, oh, eh, oh, eh, eh. Lead us to power, lead us on our path, oh great spirit, guide us to our heart. Oh, great spirit, guide us in your light. Bring us to your path, oh, bring us to your soul. Yeah, 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 oh. Yeah, 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 oh. Yeah, 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 oh. Hey, 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 yo. Lead us with compassion. Lead us to our power. Lead us on a journey. Lead us to our power. Oh, great spirit, hear these prayers. Take a deep breath in and out. And wiggle your fingers and your toes. Open your eyes and slowly come back to the space. You can grab paper and a pen and begin to take notes about your journey. And know that you can always return to this space in the lower world and connect with a power animal with the same intention to connect with your path of power or to divine any guidance or information from your helping spirits who are always ready and willing to help you and guide you along your personal path. Thank you for going on this journey with me.
I hope that the viewers had an opportunity to really enjoy that and benefit from it. I'd like them to know that if they want to get in touch with you, to go to kristenboyer.com, and I'll have a link on the video information so that they can check on that. And I definitely want to have you back. It was fascinating. I'd love to give you the chance to talk a little bit more about power animals. It's a new topic for the Bridge of Truth, and of course, the whole idea of what soul retrieval is. I know that there's a lot more that we can cover, and you can be sure that we're going to be doing a follow-up show that gets a little bit more deep into that subject. Is there anything you'd like to close with?
I'd just like to offer, if anyone wants to read any more about soul retrieval, you can check that out on my website. There's also links to other articles that have been written on soul retrieval, so you can get a better understanding of this amazing healing tradition that spans worldwide cultures. And I'd also like to note that I have a memoir that speaks specifically about my own experiences guiding me to the path of soul retrieval and shamanism. And that is in a memoir called Playing Karma, a former church girl's true journey from bondage to enlightenment, which is available on Amazon and also on my website.
So if they go to kristenboyer.com, there's a page there for your book, and then they can see the description and check on a link to actually pick it up.
Absolutely. And again, there's more information about workshops that I do and individual healings. I do long distance and in-person sessions in New York City. And I'd love to hear from you and support you with the work.
That's great. And thank you again for coming. And to all my viewers, may all your journeys be truthful till the next time we meet on the Bridge of Truth.